I never felt I was in poverty before because I always had enough to eat, always had a roof over my head. But I've seen other people, I wonder why they're where they are, and because I've seen lots of homeless people. And they just don't have any place or can afford or family to go to, and it's because of alcohol and drugs, and I feel sometimes they feel more comfortable just being where they are.
Yeah.
And then being the prejudice and being out of place, and that's what I think that's what it is. No, I'm a resident school survivor. I was taken out of my parents' home, my community, at a very young age. I didn't speak a word English, and yet they expected me to obey everything, and you get slapped in the face if you, or hit or somewhere if you didn't. So right at a very young age, I learned not to cry, because if you cried, they would say, "I'll give you something to cry about." So I learned to curb my emotions, and either happy or sad, and I was just there. We participated in the school functions, like we talk to ourselves, but if we get caught in speaking our language, and we get punished. That's the school I went to. For my daughter, she grew up in Winnipeg. I had her when I was working already, and I had to leave work for 6 months so I went on welfare for 6 months. That was in the 70s, and somebody had told me, one of the workers said, you have to pay back when you get, and I was going to, because I didn't know any better. They told me I have to pay back when I get to work, go back to work, and guess at that time family allowance was $6 that time, and I was saving my $6 each month to pay back. Well, and until somebody else came along and told me, you don't have to, then of course I went back to work in 6 months and she grew up in the daycare until she was 12. For me to work. But still, I was working and washing floors and doing maids' jobs and things like that. But I was able to have to provide for her. I think it's fairly comfortable, but because I didn't have extra, we didn't eat out or anything like that. But craft dinner was our main dish. I went to school about 4 years at the residential school, which they didn't really have a regular classes. Or we went to school and we spent another half the time in the chapels, another time scrubbing floors, doing menial jobs. Whatever we took us, so that's whatever they had. They taught us to write our name and write some things, and that's how the school went. When I got a job, at my placement, my job, they gave you a chance to learn, to go back to school, take programs, which I did. I took up grading and took some other courses with my job. My boss would let you take a course here and there, and that's how because I didn't have a school. I didn't have to speak English.
Yeah.
I more or less taught of myself, or by listening and by imitating people. I do. This lady the nurse used to tell me, give me one word, and then I'd use it for for a day, and then come back the next day. She'll ask me to use it in a sentence.
It's a good way to learn.
Yeah, I'm eager to learn anything, whenever, whatever. Sometimes not so nice things, but no, I wasn't. I was already into my late 20s, and I was working, and I was into alcohol that time, and when I quit, yeah, like I said, I went into welfare. Nobody. I was already in the city, and nobody taught me, and even to go for prenatal care. And I was working. I worked right to my pregnancy, and then until she was born, and then social worker came to see me, and you can stay home for 6 months or as long as you want, he said. But I didn't like living in welfare. We lived in. I moved into a little apartment. We had mattress on the floor. We had a 7th grade. I put my TV on top. That's all I had. We ate out of frying pan, and because I didn't know any better. I didn't even know there was second-hand stores or anything like that to go and find anything. This was in the 70s, and that was my time in the city. I didn't know any of it. Nobody. I had no place to go. I had nobody to teach me those things, even though I was an adult already. It's a new environment. I didn't have anybody. I didn't know there were agencies that they have now. I didn't know anything like that. I went to work, go home, went to work, go home, and go to a bar, and that was it. Yeah, like I said, she was. By that time, I had learned to go after what I need. Go after. I didn't sit back then. I knew I had to do something, and so I took up grading, like I said, as my place of employment, and they let us go, a whole bunch of us, and I worked at the HSC, a Health Science Center, and I worked for my people and the medical staff, and it was a very high stress job, and I was there for 25 years till I retired a few years ago. And I was being in two cultures, and you in the middle. You either get pulled apart or squished in both. And I had to be there for my daughter too. Yeah, when I was working, I started her on to go skating when she was 4 years old. I learned to skate at that time too. She was 4. As she got older, I took her to roller skating. I was learning to roller skate with the 4 wheels, and I did. That's what I. But to join a group, we didn't have any money for that. We didn't, or we felt out of place, things like that. Or I try not to show it that's the way I felt. I tried not to show her how I really felt about feeling smaller than everybody else. I don't know how to describe that. Yeah, because when I retired, I moved into a low-rent Manitoba housing because I couldn't live on my pension. and I had to really give out my furniture, and I guess I had some furniture which I picked up along the way and mismatched. Nothing matched. Still does. And I had, but so that's where I am now. Since I retired, I do a lot of volunteering. I volunteered at the OYAT TV, which is under the umbrella of United Way. And I volunteer at Winnipeg Harvest. And I also joined senior groups at Gignan Center. We took a summer off, and I joined the church, the Bible study every couple of times, every second Sunday or something. So I'm keeping myself busy like that, and it doesn't take money to do things like that. And I'm comfortable with Winnipeg housing where I am. I'm able to pay because I have my HEP and my CPP and my pension, so it's fairly comfortable. I'm not bothering anybody, or they're not bothering me, and it's okay. The housing for my daughter, she needs a place to. She just don't have anything for. I don't know if this is appropriate. When I was working at the hospital, we had this client, and she needed home oxygen, and there was no place for her to go. They were giving her welfare only give her so much, and there's no apartments. We found a rooming house, and they didn't have the outlet to plug her machine in, so she sat in the hospital almost over a month. Like the welfare gave her $280 or something. She was sitting in the hospital for $900 a day, and they wouldn't give her any place to move. So she finally got her children and to pull them welfare together and got an apartment, but it happened to be in a basement. And then she got the ambulance had to come, and the stairs are going like this, and the ambulance wouldn't come, and they had to open the window and toss her up out of the stretch. Those are the things I was saw happening in my working days. So we need housing, proper housing, and for people, for our people or people, and just people in general. Because there's lots of people that are working, but they don't have proper housing they can afford. Yeah, there's services missing, or there are services to help you, but there's not enough to go around to all those different people.